This is something a little bit different that you'd normally get on my channel, but I know that a lot of people that ride motorbikes also ride bicycles, and the flip side to that is that you may well be here watching this video about these bikes with no interest in motorcycles whatsoever. But I hope the video is going to be of some use to both parties. Now this video came about following my accident back at the beginning of July. Once I'd dispensed with the cast and the boot, I was looking for a way to speed up my rehabilitation alongside my physio, something I could do to get my ankle and my leg working properly, get the strength back into it, but also for me to get some exercise because I'd been sitting around stuffing my face for a couple of months. And of course, I wanted to get back onto a motorcycle as quickly as possible. I did think perhaps cycling was one way of getting back into it without putting too much pressure through my ankle. Of course, that made me think about e-bikes and the potential that they possess, because that means I could get out and ride, and I knew that if I had a steep incline or I had gone quite some distance and I was starting to get some pain or some issues, I could dial up the assistance that I get from the electric motors from these, and that would make things easier. And that was a way, I thought, of gradually building up my fitness without putting too much strain on there, and I could go at my own pace. Yamaha UK wanted to get involved, and they very kindly lent me these three bikes from their e-bike range to try out. So I thought I would take that opportunity to do that, see which one I preferred, and actually bring that information to you out there in case it's of any help. I do have three very different bikes here. We've got the Booster Easy, which is an urban style bike, fat tyres, racks, easy riding position. We've got the Wabash, which is a gravel bike, a very popular category now, and of course the Moro 7, which is a full suspension e-mountain bike. So let's go through each one, briefly looking at the technical aspects, but more importantly the whole riding experience. So let's start with the Booster Easy, which, as I said at the beginning, is obviously more of an urban style bike, but with a difference. Those fat tyres and that trellis frame certainly make it stand out. The Booster, I guess, can be considered more of a city bike. It's a sit up and beg kind of shopper, to the point it's got a rack on the back with a basket, which can take up to 25 kilos of weight, incidentally, and you can get an accessory basket for the front, etc. But this is the bike that got me started in terms of my injury recovery. It was a comfortable bike to ride. Those big fat balloon tyres give a nice ride quality. It's nice and springy, smooths out the bumps, and it's just a very easy bike to ride. It's driven by Yamaha's PW Series S2 motor that offers 75 Newton meters of torque and is powered by a large 36 volt 630 watt hour battery. In eco mode, this battery should give this bike a range of around about 120 kilometers. The fat 4-inch wide tyres on 20-inch rims offer a plush ride, but the Booster also has adjustable front suspension forks with 80 millimeters of travel. There are a number of power modes which are adjusted and controlled through this simple to use and easy to read display. The control buttons allow you to cycle through the modes, so from off to Eco Plus, Eco, Medium and High, and if you press and hold the top button it puts it into assist mode. You've also got on this bike a button for a front and rear light, and the button on the left is walk assist. Push and hold that and it will walk the bike along for you at a nice easy pace. And of course there's a speedometer and an odometer. You've got a gauge there to show you how much battery is left in charge, and you can see on the left hand side, as we said, what mode you're in. Nice and simple. For this bike I tended to put it in assist mode, which is what I've got it in now, and you've got a twist grip on the right side here with an internal gear in the hub, so you just rotate it to effectively make it easier or harder. Kind of doesn't feel like you're changing gears. You haven't got the clonk of a derailleur, you've just got that internal hub gearing. Works really well. It's got a bell, but again nicely spec'd, hydraulic disc brakes, super comfortable bike, really practical. And although I said I kind of use this as my starting point in my cycling recovery, it is a very, very good bike. So although ideally it's suited for an urban environment and buzzing around on tarmac, These big fat tyres also make it suitable for simple gravel trails. Now you're not going to go off-roading on it obviously, but if you're doing a mix of country trails and road, this is perfect. A little bit of an all-round bike in that sense. Happy buzzing around town, nipping to the shops, and then if you want to come out and do some country trails like this, I like it a lot. I didn't think I would when I first rode it, but it's super practical, nice and comfortable, easy to ride, and it could be all the e-bike you'd ever need. In fact, I can see a lot of these being strapped to the back of camper vans or trailers and taken away on holiday. It's that perfect bike for kind of parking up and then getting out and exploring the locality. One thing you notice about these, and it's something I've noticed on all of the Yamaha bikes, is just how smooth that battery power input is. When that power does come in, particularly on the assist mode, you don't really notice it. It just, you suddenly go, oh, I've got this extra boost of power, and it just fades in and out. You're not really conscious that you're riding an e-bike. So although it's the bike that got me back into cycling because of its geometry, because it's as easy to ride as it is, it was really helpful with my leg. But it's the sort of bike I'd be quite happy to have in the garage if you just want to go out for a nice ride, if you want to nip to the shops. It is a pretty cool looking bike as well, with this trellis frame, big fat chunky tyres. I like it. But the good thing with the Yamaha range is, of course, if you want to go that little bit further, do something different, you've got other options there. And the next one that I moved on to from this was the Wabash gravel bike. Obviously this is a much more focused bike. It's quicker, it's lighter, it's nimbler, and it's designed to give you all the benefits of a road bike, but it will also work when you decide to go off the beaten track. Again, it's driven by a Yamaha P series motor, this time the ST, which produces 70 Newton meters of torque. This is also obviously a lighter bike, weighing in at 21.4 kilograms, and a 500 watt-hour battery provides the push when needed. The Wabash uses exactly the same display and control system as the Booster Easy, and it really is a very simple and easy interface to use. The Wabash runs a Shimano GRX group set and 700C wheels that come as standard with Maxxis Rambler tyres. The aluminium frame keeps the weight low, but does feature a water bottle boss and fixings for mudguards and or panniers. It's a rigid bike with the exception of a dropper suspension seat post. Now the Wabash fits in that very popular segment now of a gravel bike. So the benefits of a road bike, but with a slightly different geometry, chunkier tyres, and in this case you've got some nice flared drop handlebars. Of the three bikes, this is definitely the quickest point to point. Obviously there's a smaller battery on this one that makes the bike feel lighter, so even if you're riding without battery assistance, it's still pretty good. That's all right, no worries. I was going to shout, but then I noticed you had headphones on. Doesn't matter, okay. It is quite windy today, so apologies if you can't hear me very well. I was going to use a remote mic, but I didn't want to risk that falling off. And the audio from this into the 360 X4 is pretty damn good. This is definitely a more direct bike. And with that smaller battery, the bike is lighter, so actually if you're riding this unassisted, it doesn't feel any different really to a standard bike. For me, I'm not used to the drop handlebars, and I'm riding this on the hoods at the moment. I've still got easy access to the brakes, I kind of like that, but riding down there just isn't something I really particularly enjoy. On this kind of stuff it's fine. When things start to get a little bit more tricky, I don't feel as if I've got enough control with these bars, these drop bars. Even riding on the hoods, I prefer a wider kind of traditional mountain bike style bar. But there's no denying that this bike for travel is the best of the three. This is what I moved on to after the booster. The only issue I had with it in the early days is because it's a rigid bike, but you have got a suspension seat post obviously, but with that lack of suspension I just felt that all of the little undulations in the roads, in the trails, were being pushed up through my ankle, and I just found that not as comfortable to ride. But Nick Sanders has just ridden around the world on one, so I think that says a lot for the practicality and the durability of this bike. Obviously, being a road bike, it is narrow, so I can go through there, which I can't do, as you'll see later on the Moro 7. Thank you. So this bike's fantastic on the road, but also this is ideal terrain for this kind of bike. And if this was the only kind of riding that I would be doing, this would be very high on my list. It's cheaper than the Moro 7, and arguably with the bottle mounts and mounts for pannier racks and everything, it's more practical as well. But it trips through here really nicely and it's a lot of fun. I'm riding this in the assist mode, and for the majority of my riding that seems to be the best one to do. You can just hit it on that and forget about it. Hasn't quite got the shove of the Moro 7, as you'll see later on in the video when I ride that bike, but again the assist is smooth, unnoticeable, and I can trump up this. Okay, admittedly I'm not riding at Mount Ventoux, but it's still a climb that me in my current physical fitness state and injury wise wouldn't be able to take on at this kind of pace. I feel a little bit uncomfortable down on the hood. I'd rather be higher up on bigger bars. The other thing that you find more noticeable on this bike compared to the others is because of its weight. When you go from that transition to hitting the maximum assisted electronic push, you don't suddenly feel like you've got a big heavy bike that you're trying to shove along. And on this bike you're more likely to be hitting those speeds more so than the other two. So that's the Wabash. Quick, comfortable, easy to ride. It's a great choice for that mix of tarmac and gravel, and certainly from getting from A to B in a short space of time. Of the three, it's definitely the one to pick. Finally, I'll turn my attention to the Moro 7, which is a full suspension e-mountain bike. It looks fantastic and it performs equally well. What's interesting about this bike compared to other e-mountain bikes in the sector is that it was solely developed by Yamaha. That means the frame, motor and battery have all been developed to work perfectly together. It's got quite a unique look with its dual twin frame that housed both the battery and the rear shock unit. Yamaha do know a thing about building winning off-road machines, and it shows. Again, it's driven by a Yamaha P-Series motor, this time the X3, which offers a whopping 85 Newton meters of torque. A 500 watt-hour battery provides the juice, and this does seem to be small compared to some of its competition who are fitting larger batteries. But its use does keep the weight down, and the Moro 7 tips the scales at a pretty healthy 24.3 kilograms. That power is transferred to the dirt via 27.5 rims fitted with Minion DHF front and Recon Max Terra 2.6 inch tyres in the rear. There's a full Shimano Dior XT 12-speed group set, and stopping duties are taken care of with Magura MTS 4-piston brakes. Suspension is provided via a pair of RockShox Lyric Select forks offering 160 millimeters of travel up front, and a RockShox Super Deluxe Select rear shock They offer a plush ride with adjustability, and the rear shock can be locked out. The Moro 7 also features a dropper seat post with 125mm of height difference in the small and medium framed bikes and 150mm in the large and up. The control unit differs from the others. Its display is just a number of coloured lights rather than an LCD screen. However, given the bike's intended purpose, this does make sense, and although initially it looks a little bit confusing, once you understand what those coloured lights mean, it's very straightforward. The unit does also offer a USB-C port, handy for powering phones or devices. So for me, the Yamaha e-bike range has been a fantastic way to get back into it. Started off with the booster, nice and easy, relaxed riding position, really comfortable, lots of fun, but getting out there and getting moving. The Wabash is a fantastic bike if you're touring. If you want to cover lots of ground and do it quickly, then that's a really good option. And then the Moro 7 for me, I've got a background of mountain biking, so this is really what I wanted to spend my time on, and it has been absolutely fantastic. And I think that's a good way for me to build up my fitness, get my skills back, and once the ankle starts to get stronger and I'm more confident on that. The problem I have at the moment is I just worry about taking a tumble and or having to dab my foot down hard. That's going to be a bigger problem on a trail bike than it is on a bike like this. But as that improves over time, I can start to ride some more challenging terrain, get to some of the bike parks, and properly get back into it. So I've already gone through the controls and electronics on that. I like the setup on the Wabash. Probably just easier to read, but once you get used to what these lights mean and your way to set the programs up, then this is just the same. Geometry works for me. I'm still getting back to speed in terms of that, so, and trusting the tyres. I'd probably want to go, if I'm being honest, with a slightly skinnier tyre. These are good and give you a decent level of grip, but when conditions kind of get muddy over the winter, I'd rather have something just that little bit narrower to dig in more. But outside of that, when you consider what you get on this bike, then the price tag seems pretty reasonable when you look at the competition.
The riding experience on the Moro 7 is great. The suspension is plush and you have plenty of control over the compression and rebound damping. It really soaks up the hits, and when riding on simple trails like this, locking out the rear gives you a little bit more of a direct drive. The riding position is comfortable, the bars are nice and wide, and the short stem offers very quick and direct steering. It feels nimble and lively on the trail, which inspires confidence. The components are all high quality and are a perfect match for the rest of the bike. The brakes are superb, loads of feel and power. It is a really nice piece of kit and it is so much fun to ride. One drawback that buyers might have is that because of the frame design there are no bottle bosses. You'll need a backpack and bladder if you want to take hydration with you. But overall it is a very entertaining and extremely enjoyable bike.
Fantastic. It's nice to be able to get out here and do this. Makes a real difference, not only to fitness but mental health as well. The only thing I would suggest is changing the pedals out. It will come with a set of plastic flat pedals. I don't want to wear clipless. I've done that in the past and I've had too many crashes and not been able to bail out, so a decent set of flat pedals. In muddy conditions or when it starts to get rough, there's just not enough grip. You need bigger pins, something that will bite into the bottom of your shoe, assuming you're not wearing cleats. But other than that, I can't think of anything about this bike that I don't like. There's nothing else I would change. So of course I want to thank Yamaha for letting me have use of these bikes to get to grips with them, find out what works best for me, and I'll leave a link down in the bottom for you to go away and have a look at the range. Despite enjoying all three bikes immensely, it was the Moro 7 that tugged at my heartstrings, and in reality it's the bike that's going to fulfill my needs and requirements over the longer term. When I'm out riding, I always want to explore terrain that wouldn't suit the other two. So it was the Moro for me, and it was perfect timing too. The demo fleet was being sold off, so I've been able to buy this with a nice discount, so thank you very much Yamaha. But you may be able to take advantage of that as well, because as I understand it, the whole fleet is being sold off through the dealer network, so there will be an opportunity for you to get any of these 3 bikes as an ex demo at a discounted price. And apparently it still does come with the 2-year warranties. If you were buying it new, you just save a bit of cash. But if you are interested, then definitely get to your local Yamaha dealer to check out the range, have a test ride, and then see what they've got. Now, with any new technology, there are always a few naysayers, and we've seen it in the EV car and bike world, and you get a certain amount of that with e-bikes as well, although these are now definitely more mainstream. But there's 2 main things that people pursue. One is that it's an e-bike, so it does all your work for you and it doesn't get you fit. Well, I can definitely say that is not true. I've been out riding this, I still come back out of puff, I'm still got tired legs, I do feel it. And you have to remember that you have control over that electronic input. So if you don't need it, you don't have to switch it on. It's not like it's constantly driving you all the time. And for me, this is definitely a way of being able to go from being overweight and unfit to start to gradually improve that, improve the strength in my leg, improve my fitness, and rely on electric motor less and less. So I think that is completely a moot point. Point 2 is that they are just too expensive. And it is sometimes hard to argue against that. These do cost a lot of money, but many standard bicycles do cost the same, if not more in some cases. And as the technology in the batteries improves and the efficiencies of making them and the costs come down, then these become more appealing. For the money that you spend on these, you can easily buy a trail bike, and people kind of make that comparison and go, well, you know, what are you getting for your money? But I don't think that's the right comparison. You're looking at 2 very different things. Personally, I think I would get more use out of this day to day than I would do with a trail bike. Plus, I'm getting out and getting fit, I'm getting fresh air. You could argue you're doing that on the dirt bike as well, depending on how you ride, but it's a different experience. So I hope you found this video useful. It wasn't massively technical, but you know, I'm not a bike nerd. I wanted to bring you an opinion of a normal everyday guy looking at e-bikes really for the first time. So I hope you've got something out of that. If it did raise any questions, or if there's something you want to know or discuss, then let me know in the comment section down below. I always look forward to reading your comments, and all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.